So today we're diving into a document that makes a case for the existence of God, and it uses, well, pretty much everything, from classic philosophy to modern conspiracy theories. It's a really wild mix of arguments, so let's just get right into it.
All right, so the document kicks things off with this, right? If evil exists, God must also exist. That's a pretty bold statement to start with. And what it does is, it kind of flips the script. It starts the whole conversation not with good, but with its total opposite. This is the jumping off point for the first type of evidence we're going to look at.
So we're going to break down the four main categories of evidence that this document lays out. And just a heads up, our job here is simply to explain what this source is claiming, not to prove or disprove it.
Okay, so let's jump into that first category. And like we just said, it starts with this whole problem of evil. It's a pretty unusual place to start making a case for God, but you'll see it's actually pretty powerful.
Now this is where things get really interesting. Look at how the source makes its case. On one side, it points to these really big, specific events it calls Luciferian agendas, things like a bioengineered COVID or deaths from experimental vaccines. The argument, the core idea here, is that if you have evil that's this organized, this tangible on a massive scale, then there has to be an equal and opposite force for good. It's basically an argument from polarity, you know? Good needs evil to exist and vice versa.
All right, let's move on to the second category and see how this all builds. We're shifting gears a bit here, moving away from the philosophical and jumping headfirst into the supernatural. We're talking about alleged messages and events from, well, another realm.
So the document really goes deep on near-death experiences, or NDEs. It talks about these common patterns you see in the stories, people claiming they've seen heaven or even hell. Some even talk about these miraculous healings. And it's not just NDEs. It also points to those final moments of life, where, people who are dying say they see loved ones who've already passed on, right before they go. The idea is that the veil between our world and the next gets super thin at that moment.
And the source really casts a wide net here. I mean, it covers all sorts of paranormal claims. It even mentions the CIA's own research into ESP, kind of framing it as an official nod that this stuff is real. But then it goes bigger, talking about mass witnessed events like the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima, prophecies that have apparently come true, and even brings up evidence for reincarnation. It's a lot to take in.
And check this out. This is one of the most specific and, I think, profound claims in the whole document. This is a quote, a message, supposedly received telepathically from God by a nonverbal child named Josiah Cullen. The document uses this as an example of direct, pure divine communication. The argument is, how could a child with zero religious or philosophical background come up with something so deep? It's pretty compelling stuff.
Okay, so for our third category, the whole focus shifts from the outside world inward. We're moving on from things like apparitions and NDEs to something much more personal, the internal, transformative power of faith.
The document even offers a kind of how-to guide for effective prayer. And the main takeaway is this: it's not some cosmic vending machine. The source literally jokes, don't pray for a Mercedes-Benz. Instead, prayer is framed as this selfless act. You pray for other people, you ask for forgiveness, and here's a really fascinating idea. You actually strengthen God, helping the forces of good fight against evil.
And to bring this all back down to earth, the document points to Alcoholics Anonymous. It makes the case that AA's incredible success rate, which is built on the foundation of surrendering to a higher power, is maybe one of the most concrete, real-world examples we have of faith completely changing lives. It's presented as straight-up practical proof.
And then you've got the argument from just sheer numbers. Think about it. The source makes a big deal out of the fact that literally billions of people all across the globe and throughout all of human history have felt some kind of connection to God. This shared universal human experience, that itself is presented as a kind of powerful collective evidence.
All right, for our final category, we're going to zoom way out. We're leaving the personal behind and going cosmic. Now we're looking at arguments that are based on the very structure and laws of the universe itself.
So here, the document pulls out a classic philosophical argument. The easiest way to think about it is like a line of dominoes, right? Every domino that falls was knocked over by the one before it. Well, this argument says that if you trace that chain of cause and effect all the way back to the beginning, you have to find a first domino, something that started the whole chain reaction but wasn't caused by anything else. And that first uncaused cause, well, the argument is, that's God. The source then lays out what it calls signatures of a creator. little fingerprints left all over reality. We're talking about mathematical patterns like the golden ratio that pop up everywhere in nature, the just unbelievable complexity of our own DNA code, the strange way atomic structures look like tiny solar systems, and of course, the big one, the total mystery of where our non-physical consciousness actually comes from.
This brings us to something called the fine-tuning argument. The idea here is that the basic laws of physics in our universe are so incredibly precise, so perfectly balanced, that if you changed them even just a tiny, tiny bit, life as we know it couldn't exist. It suggests the universe was deliberately tuned for us. But what's really fair is that the source itself brings up a major scientific counterargument, the multiverse theory. The idea that maybe our universe is just one of an infinite number, and we just happen to live in the one where the settings were right for life.
So as we start to wrap this up, it's pretty clear that the source material we've gone through today casts an incredibly wide net, right? It pulls together arguments from classic philosophy, stories of the paranormal, the really deep power of personal faith, all the way to the grand patterns of the cosmos itself.
And all of this really leaves us with one big question to think about. The document we've been looking at defines proof using everything from personal feelings to cosmic math. So it makes you wonder, for a topic this huge, what can we actually call evidence? And where exactly is the line between evidence and just plain faith?